Let's talk about this story. Kellyanne Conway, former counselor to President Trump, Fox News contributor, and author of Here's the Deal, a very good book. How's that thing doing, by the way? You were at the top of the list.
I think. Yeah, I haven't looked in a while, but I love it. People are buying it. I'm going all over the country. Was at the Reagan Library right before you. I was your warm-up act.
You're my warm-up act. So just the point here, maybe it's an obvious point, maybe not. Okay. The Democrats are talking about democracy and extremism. I think their policies are extreme. But they basically bet on Donald Trump, mega, MAGA, whatever they say, and abortion. It didn't work. And the Republicans bet on the reality of high inflation and high crime, and also the problem with the borders and illegal immigration. I mean, is that the basic story here in this election?
Yes, the Democrats ran on what they want you to believe. The Republicans ran on what you can see with your own two eyes. And voters are smart enough, Larry, to vote according to what they see. It is a decline in everyday wealth, in what your wages are worth, obviously, an increase in crime. A big problem with our education overhang. A lot of parents are still very upset about the declining test scores, about the inability for them to find a better choice for their children. And of course, it's immigration and border security. I mean, 10 years after Romney blew it, and we had that autopsy by the Republican National Committee then under different leadership, that was all nonsense compared to where the immigration issue has gone since, where Steve Kornacki at his board last week on MSNBC was showing a Gallup poll plus 33 for the Republicans on which party do you trust more on handling immigration. Donald Trump was told, you're going to ruin this country, you're going to ruin the party, you're never going to win because of that. But I think it's beyond immigration. I think it's border security. And if you have a president in Joe Biden who's minimally campaigning, but he's out there every day, if you have him, he has spent 174 days in Delaware and 0 days at the southern border. He never talks about fentanyl. He gave a speech at Union Station, that big swing state, last week.
In Washington.
Looked like the White House, which is the same city as the White House. Just stay home. Work from home, Joe, and do it. Anyway, he gives this speech, never mentions crime, never mentions inflation, never mentions the issues that Americans have been telling pollsters for over a year are vexing and perplexing them. One last thing. This whole thing, democracy's on the ballot. Joe Biden's on the ballot. His failings, his flailings, independents left him after Afghanistan. They've never gone back. He doesn't have an approval rating over 50% on any issue among independents. And to say democracy is on the ballot and democracy will disappear and invoke Stalin and Nazis, it's so irresponsible, despicable, and insulting to people who are truly suffering economically and afraid of crime. And here's the other thing. Democracy does not belong to one political party. It belongs to each and every one of us.
People know that, too.
Yes.
People absolutely know that. And you can talk about extremism, but these policies, I mean, I call it Green New Deal socialism, ending coal, ending fossil fuels. Those are extreme policies.
That's right.
Big government socialism, which Newt coined ages ago, that's an extreme policy. But are you surprised, albeit pleasantly as I am, that the Republicans have been on message? I mean, I think Kevin McCarthy deserves a lot of credit.
Yes.
But these young Senate candidates, which some people put down 6 months ago, but they've all been, I mean, we've had every one of them on 2 and 3 times on this show, and they talk about inflation and crime and fentanyl and the border. I mean, really, the GOP has been totally on message.
They've had great message discipline. So in the end, the Democrats tried to expand the number of messengers. They have Clinton, a couple of Clintons, one Obama. Partridge, they have Pete Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren up there and Jill Biden. So they tried expanding the number of messengers, but they never had a core message. We've had great message discipline, and our messengers this time are our candidates. So Wasserman said in the Cook report that 70% of the Republican candidates in vulnerable Democratic districts right now are either female, veterans, or candidates of color, or some combination thereof. So it's not just voters realigning with the Republican Party and the America First agenda, Larry. It's our candidates, and they're able to articulate it in a way that makes sense, that's actionable, doable, and by the way, pleasant and optimistic and hopeful. This is not vintage Barack Obama out there scolding people, stop moping around, stop being lazy, come out and vote. What is he doing? I mean, he's the guy who ran and won on hope and change, and he's out there pointing the finger at people, pretending the world's about to end. By the way, if democracy is that important to you, then you demand hiding people like Katie Hobbs out in Arizona, debate Carrie Lake. Go ahead and let the voters poke the fruit and suss it out between the two candidates. Democracy demands that people can see the candidates debating free of charge.
You know, you mentioned America First. America First Policy Institute, I'm going to give a plug because we're involved in that together. And I mean, those are the themes, and so they've resonated, and I think that's a good thing. I think the GOP will be ready. We don't know what their strategy is going to be, but I think they'll be ready when they take office January 3rd.
They'll be ready. The Commitment to America and America First Policy Institute really mirror each other. There was some collaboration there as well. And I think that that is the blueprint for governing. And this will not be a slim majority for Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. He'll be able to go and put some real legislation forward. Obviously on energy, I would imagine the border. Obviously stop this economic socialism that's creeping up, this out of control spending. And sure, there'll be investigations, but he'll allow the people who are in charge of those committees to do their work, Larry. But I think to just show America that we're not afraid of putting things on Joe Biden's desk. And I don't want to hear anybody say, don't even put that on his desk. He won't sign it into law. He's going to have his Bill Clinton welfare reform moment or his Barack Obama moment where he pulled back on some of the more left of center policies after he had his shellacking. I don't know if Joe Biden's capable of that. I don't know if his chief of staff is capable of that, but he's going to need to do that. And who cares? We stand for certain principles and policies on our freedom agenda. We're duty bound to put that forward. One last thing on what's happened in this election cycle. I think Ronna McDaniel and RNC have done an excellent job. Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell. Donald Trump is going to have a lot to crow and glow about after tomorrow night. He was told, stay away, get away, don't campaign, go off into the sunset. His MAGA Inc. has spent money in 5 or 6 states. He's out there. He's going to be in Ohio tonight. He was just in Florida, Pennsylvania. He shows up, he stands up, he speaks up, and he puts up. And Pence and Pompeo have been out there, too.
Yeah, right. Some people mocked his candidates, the ones he backed, Arizona and Ohio in particular, but not only, Oz and Pennsylvania. They're going to turn out to be pretty good, I think. Can I get you on this coal fiasco? Ohio is a coal state.
Yes, it is.
But wait, Pennsylvania is a coal state.
No doubt.
How's that going to play?
I'd say it's
How's
the
that
coal
going to
state.
play?
I grew up near there. Knew lots of people in the energy business at the time. Well, that's not going to play. And remember, Hillary Clinton said this in 2016. She promised, I will shut down coal. It was one of the worst things she could have ever said. And people remember that. When you show them who you are, they believe you the first time. And that's going to hurt him. And I even think the little argument with Joe Manchin this weekend is going to hurt him in some places, too. I mean, West Virginia is a place that Donald Trump carried by more than 40 points. And people hear a president of the United States who should be talking about what's right in front of you right now, the clear and present dangers to your economic wherewithal, to your physical and financial security. And they don't hear that from him. They hear him threatening industries.
That's right. It's like he is the quintessential pessimist, and the Republicans, pointing out, as you say, the reality on the ground, have become the optimists once again, which is where they should always be. Optimists win, pessimists lose. Trump is having a very good cycle. And I agree with you about Pence, by the way, who's having a good cycle. But I know, can we not have DeSanctimonious, Ron DeSanctimonious? I mean, really, look, I love the guy, but sometimes, as you said in your book, you have to exercise tough love. Trump is so good on the issues. He's been so good on the candidates. Does he have to say DeSanctimonious?
And
Kellyanne, please? Can you talk him out of it?
And yesterday, President Trump, at a rally in the Miami area for Senator Rubio, said and in a couple days, Florida, you're going to reelect your wonderful Senator Marco Rubio, and you're going to reelect your governor, Ron DeSantis. The president didn't say who he plucked at 3% in the primaries, endorsed and helped him win. He did. I'm sure Governor DeSantis is very grateful for that. I'm sure Governor Brian Kemp is very grateful for the president's endorsement 4 years ago when he beat Stacey Abrams the first time, about to beat him for the second time. I think Kemp and DeSantis have done fabulous jobs as the respective governors of Georgia and Florida on policy. They've picked the right fights, and they're going to defeat their hapless Democratic Socialist opponents handily, and they're all on the same team. Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis are on the same team. You know, DeSantis is Trump's governor now.
Promise there. Look,
Trump was DeSantis'
I don't
president.
think it's
DeSantis
that
is Trump's
great.
governor.
I thought Pocahontas was very good. Okay.
I like Pocahontas even better, but yes.
I thought Low Energy Jeb was very good. I didn't think De Sanctimonious is very good. Can we get that out? Really?
Well, I focus on the policies and the fact that we've got two great messengers.
These are
and
Trumpian
leaders.
policies.
Yes,
These are
indeed.
America first.
And
These
Florida
are
first.
Make America Great Again
Yes, America
policies.
first and Florida first. But, you know, some of Trump's favorite people end up with nicknames, so think of it that way, too.
I know. We have nicknames. You and I have nicknames.
I'm sure we do. We just won't tell anybody what they are. Keep guessing, haters.
Kellyanne Conway. By the way, coal in Pennsylvania is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
I assume Oz is out there pounding away on it.
No, he is. And Fetterman, you know, you're talking about people criticizing Oz as a candidate or Blake Masters or J.D. Excuse me, the issue there is John Fetterman. The issue in Arizona is named Mark Kelly. If it's going to be about biography, he's the astronaut. His wife, God forbid, came very close to losing her life 12 years ago. Guess what? That's not. Mark Kelly's record is terrible.
That's right.
He voted for IRS agents, 87,000 of them, not border agents. He's wrong on the border. He votes with Biden most of the time, 95% of the time. And speaking of the book, Larry, people should read the afterword because it's directional on how to win in 2024. It's meant for all of us, and it's also meant to tell the 74 million plus Trump-Pence voters who were not at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th that we hear you, we see you, and we know you're being ignored. We know you're the forgotten man, forgotten woman again. And speaking of the cavalry, it's coming tomorrow, and then it's going to come all the way through 2024.
Let me guess. Content matters. Policies matter.
It matters. People are paying attention. People are smart. And the American people will reward those who are resilient, optimistic, hopeful, and respect them as being smart.
I love the optimism. I love the GOP pointing out the problems and giving solutions.
Do it.
I love that. Kellyanne Conway, the best of the best.